Masechta bava basra daf nun vav amud aleph, 6 lines from the top. We're starting from the words ein shom loy metzav loy chatzav. Before we spoke about the nichse of a ger. And the chasm of a ger is hefker. And if somebody wants to make a chazaka in the field, he can make a chazaka by making if it's demarked all around with boundaries. So we said he makes a chazaka, he gives a dig according to Rav, and he's kind of that field. And but if there's no demarkers over there, so Rav says that then you would need to take an animal and plow from Mizrach to Ma'ariv, or from Tzafim to Darim, 2 rows, 1 and 1, or 2 rows across the whole field. Rabbi Yochanan says the Gemara, we're going to learn a new shita. What's the din according to Rabbi Yochanan? Says the Gemara, Pirish Rabbi Marinois Mishum Mishmoi. Rabbi Marinos said from the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Kol Shenikras Al Shemoi. The way one could be koina or make be koina in a field without any boundaries is the same way, just giving a little dig, like Rav said, when it's demarked from with boundaries. Rabbi Yochanan says that you don't, even if it's not demarked with a boundary, if it doesn't have any markers around as a symbol for what the boundaries are, you're still going to be koina through making a chazaka by making a little dig in the ground. But kol shenikis al shmai, as long as it's called on his name as one field, not as many. If it's called sadais, then you would have to make a chazaka in each field separately. But if it's called on his name as a singular sada, so then he doesn't have to do like Rav, who says you have to take an animal and plow across the field on both sides.
If you have an LLC on each piece of land,
so it's called, according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's separate pieces of land, and therefore you'd need a chazaka and a separate LLC.
Who's on the LLCs today? That's new law.
Yeah.
So therefore, each LLC has the same name. If you own 50 LLCs,
right?
The government knows who's the owner of each LLC.
Okay.
It's your name, so therefore it's on record. So therefore, it doesn't matter that the name is a little different.
Okay. How's the case talking about? Amar Papa said the Karale Be Gargusa de Planya. Lamashal, the Geir had a field, and they called the field, in the field there was a bird which watered the whole field. So they called it the bird of Gargusa, of the Geir, the Planya of that Geir, the bird of Mayim of that Geir. So it's singular. Or the others say that it's the bird that watered the field, not fields. The field in singular. So as long as it was described as one field, or described as one, like a bird that belongs to the gate, not as many Sundays or many birthdays, then it's considered as one field, and all he has to do is give a little dig. And if he digs, that's alone enough to make a chazaka. And you don't have to do like Rav says, that since it's not marked with a border, so you would have to take and plow along the whole field with 2 rows to be mazik. What do you mean? The ger is not. No, the ger is not here. Somebody to be koined the nechasim of a ger, which is hefker. The ger is dead. Okay, so in order to be koined, so Rav said in such a case you have to go through the sadat and make it go along the whole sadat with 2 rows.
He had a lot of fields.
But if it's termed as one field, that's enough according to Rabbi Yochanan to do the regular chazaka of just digging. You don't have to take an animal and plow through the whole field from Mizrach to Ma'ariv and Tzafim to Darim. Okay, something you might.
What if the ger dies when this wheat's growing in all the fields? So how can he plow?
What do you mean? He does something that he cuts along 2 rows. But here he's talking about Charisha. Okay. Yosef Rav Acha Bar Abia Kamed Rav Asi. Rav Acha Bar Abia was sitting before Rav Asi. Yosef, Vekam Mishmei Rav Asi, and he said in the name He sat down and he said in the name of Rav Asi Rab Chanina, Chatzuba, Mafsik benichse ager. Chatzuba, a tree that was planted on the border of the field, is enough to make it as a hefsik between the fields. Chatzuba was a tree that only spread its roots downwards. It didn't go to the sides. They used Chatzuba dafka as that type of a tree as a siman. One shouldn't be masik gvul, shouldn't go into the gvul of his friend, just like the Chatzuba goes straight down.
So if you have a chatzuba there,
So it's going to be considered as a hefsik between the nichse hageh, between one field and the other, if he had such trees at the border of the field.
if you have to make separate chazakas.
You have to make separate chazakas, correct. Then you'll have to make separate chazakas. What's this chatzuba tree? Meaning, what's the chshivas of the tree? I know I told you it's as a siman, but where do we see this tree is used as a border? Rav Yehuda said the name of Rav Shabai Tichem Yehishua Yisrael Saaretz. Yehishua used these trees called chatzuba to separate between the shvatim, between each shevet, and between each individual. In that shevet, they used these chatzuba trees as a marker between, as a border. They planted these trees to use it as a border to know where the next field starts. Sagt die Gemara weiter. Aber Rav Yehuda Marav, Lo Mana Yeshua Ela Yores Ha'imdes Al Hagvulim. Yeshua only enumerated which cities? Those cities that stand on the border. And it was for a reason. To tell you, first of all, those cities standing on the border, there were many more cities. So, the Gemara wants to Bavan, why did the Yeshua only count those cities and not more? There were much more cities that were conquered. But when the Torah enumerates the cities, it only enumerates a few cities, not all of them.
On the border, you mean?
Oh, so he says the reason why he only enumerated those cities that you see, because those were cities at the border of the Gvul of Eretz Yisrael. To know where you're going to be Chai Maisa, where it's outside of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yehuda Mashmol. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Kol Sheher O HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Moshe. All those land, all the land of Eretz Yisrael that was shown to Moshe Rabbeinu at the time of his death, Chai V'Maisa. He's Chai V'Maisa. We know that there's the edits of the Shiva Amomim, right? That's the Eretz that Hashem showed to Moshe Rabbeinu. What Hashem promised to Avraham was 10 umes. So what happened? So first of all, he's telling you only those 7 umes that were conquered by the Yidden are only these 7 umes that were shown to Moshe are Mechuyev Maisa. The other 3 umes not. From where do we learn that out? Because it says Hashem Sha'ama HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe Zois ha'aretz Hashem nishbaiti. This is the land which I have sworn. Zois is a lashon miyut, to be memayit the other 3. The lafuki, to be memayit the other 3, which Hashem had promised to Avram that He would give to Avram Avinu. That even if we were to conquer it later, we wouldn't be mechuyev ma'isa in those lands, right? It won't be mechuyev. It will be considered as Eretz Yisrael, but you won't lo yischayv ma'ases. It says you won't be shafilim kavshi Yisrael. This is the Rashbam, and it's behind it. May Melech HaMashiach in the Rambam Hilchos Yitzayach Ches Perek Dalet. It says lo yischayvu oz b'maises. K'mei keinu melamdenu shafilim kavshi Yisrael chelik mehem achrei ma'is Yeshua. Even if they didn't conquered part of these from the 3 Amamim, huvkanu memaises. This is the Rashbam. It says they're not going to be mechuyev ma'ases. The other 3 that were not included in there, it's Yisrael. Yeah. Which are the 3? Lafuki mai. Says the Gemara, Lafuki kini knizi v'kadmoni. Says the Gemara, who is kini knizi and kadmoni? Tanya, we learned in Abraisa. Rameya it's naftucha arva b'shalma. Rabbi Yehuda harseya amoin umayav. Rabbi Shimon it's the region of Adiskis, Asya, Vaspamia.
Can we get some English names?
That's what it is. I don't have any. It doesn't mean that anything here about. Oh, you mean the? Okay, good.
What does it say?
So, So, if let's go weiter. Sagt die Gemara, sagt die Mishnah. There were two people testifying on the person who was making a chazak in the field.
Okay.
That the two Edom came and testified about a guy who was being machzir in the Sada, that he had eaten it.
Also, right?
Of course, that he was eating there for 3 years. And then, and he, Tainus, I bought it, and look, I have Edom that I was here for 3 years, that I consumed the produce of the field for 3 years. And we found the Edom to be Zaymamin. Okay, says the Gemara, what does it mean, Zaymamin? The Edom come, a second pair of Edom. It's not Edei HaKosher, Edei HaZama. Edei HaZama means two Edom come and say, how could you testify that you saw this guy eat in this city in these years? In these years you were with us. Part of the 3 years you were for sure with us. How could you be testifying about those 3 years? That's called Edei HaZama. So Mishalman Lo Yasakol. Besides that, he gets back to Karka. The original owner gets back his karka because it wasn't a chazaka. These Edom Zainamim, what they wanted to do to him to make him lose the money worth of this karka, they have to pay him. Besides the karka,
worth $1,000.
So besides getting back the karka, the Edom Zainamim would have to pay him additional $1,000.
Well, let's say it's a house.
Whatever.
It could be $1 million.
Yes, it could. Nobody's disagreeing. Whatever the value is that they attempted to make him lose, they have to pay for that. What's if you had different sets of Edom for different years? Shnayim, one pair of Edom came, testified about the first year that he ate, consumed from the field the first year. Ushnayim, and a second pair of Edom, a different pair of Edom came, Bashniya, testified about the second year. Ushnayim, and a third pair of Edom came, Bashlishis.
You said before it's okay, right?
Oh, so Mishal Shin B'nei, and there were Muzam. So the Chayda, it's not a full Edis. First of all, how could you combine it to a Chazaka? That's number one.
We learned before that it's okay. You can have separate for each year, right?
Yes, we say they're combined. When it comes to Hazama, we say, even though we each one, if you were to be mazim them for 1 year, it wasn't a chazaka. It wouldn't be. There wouldn't be a inyan of hazama.
It was mazim all each.
He was each Adam, each group. He was mazim all three. It has to be that Hashbam says, "Kan meduba b'mikra shahab marzik hu shehevi as shalish hakitis lebezna." Had to all three pairs of Adam had to come together to bezdin, because if it's each one separate, you can be mazim. They wouldn't have to pay if you're mazim one pair of Adam. How could you testify about the first year? You were with us about the year. That first year, they couldn't make him be mechayiv. They couldn't make him lose the sada. So it has to be, he brought them all three pairs together. No, it wasn't a chazaka. He didn't cause any harm.
There was no mezumim on these guys.
What?
The second year there was no mezumim on these
No, we're saying on all 3 years. All of them were muzam.
No, he says only the first one's the first year.
No. He's saying, how did the chazaka take place? Through 6 people, through 3 pairs of Adam. 1 pair testified on the first, the second pair on the second, and third on the third year. Then he says all of them were muzam. So then they're going to have all that. We're going to divide it by 3.
Started later on.
We're going to divide it by 3, and we have to say they were all brought together as one. Because if it was separate, and you were mazim one pair of Adam for the first year, how could you have testified in the first year without the other 2 years? Those 2 Adam weren't able to be mechayiv him to lose the field. That they weren't able to make the chazaka. They had no effect that to be mechayiv them mitzad hazama because they wanted. They wanted to what? They couldn't do nothing with their edus on 1 year. It's only after if the Machzik brought all 3 pairs of Adam together, and then he was mazim all 6, then the hazama takes place.
So what?
Who has to pay?
All 3, each one, a third.
So when he's mazim them, he needs 2
6
are enough, or to be mazim all 6.
All 6. He has to be mazim all 6. No. All 6 together. He has to be mazim.
So each the Adam that are mazim say, oh, you two with us the first year, you two with us the second year.
You can have different Eidei Hazama coming. That's not the issue. The
How
issue
do
is
they mazel? They say,
all you guys were Muslim. And
all you guys with me for 6
Muslim.
years.
You guys came
3 years.
together as a group to make me lose the field. It's only you as a group that can make me lose the field, because only with the testimony of 3 years chazaka am I able to lose my field. When you're coming with 6 Eidim, only if you come with 6 Eidim together, then you were able to, with your chazaka, you were able to make
So
me
how they
lose my field.
How's that going to take place?
Now, you came with the 6 Eidim, and then another pair of Eidim came and
All you need is another two.
well, true, testify.
They say
All you guys
six
were
were
with us
You know,
for 3 years in Israel, and this took place in Spain or in Paris, whatever.
so why did he have to bring separate groups, separate?
That's the chiddush. He's come to tell you, even though individually it wouldn't be hazama, but if they were brought together, even though the Eidos is each one is only on 1 year, so they could kind of, hey, we didn't make him lose. We only testified about 1 year, not about a chazaka. So we say, no, you guys came together. It was cahoots. You guys came together to make me lose a field. So you all accomplices in the making me lose the field by making it a chazaka together.
You don't have to pay.
And you all have to pay a third. Okay. Sagt die Mishnah nach Gasachin. Shleish Achim. 3 brothers. And then the Echad Mitzdaraf Imayim. And you had one that was combined with them. So you had like this, 3 brothers. Brothers are not allowed to testify together. So you had one guy testified for all 3 years, and that one guy combined with each brother that testified on a different year. 3 brothers testified about a different testimony, separate years, and one was mitzdaref with them for every year.
So what's the
So that, 1 second. So mitzdaref iman, harei eilu shalosh eidias. It's 3 eidias. Vehein eidus achs le'azama, and they're considered 1 eidus for azama. So, but bepoil bamish by azama, you're putting them together, 3 brothers. So the chayt, it's 1 eidus for azama. You're being mazim about the testimony. That's the answer. But he says, even though for the hazama to be mazim, you have to be mazim them as a group. So the 3 brothers, they're apostle eidus. Kamashwan, this is the Rashbam. I'm not telling you any chidushim. So the Rashbam has come to tell you, like you just said, but the testimonies are separate testimonies, even though it looks like
they
they were legitimate testimonies, and they were Muslim together. That's all. I'm going to read the Rashbam. And all 3 brothers are in cahoots in helping out the machzik. Have a 3-year chazaka. Nevertheless, we are mekabel the eidus. Ki kol och meid be'eidus nefredes al shana acheres. Each brother is testifying a different testimony. So that's such a kasha eidus. Now in huzma all shalish kitas, then each one pays the brothers. The one guy who testified on all 3 years pays half, and the other 3 brothers pay the others. They divide the other half, a third. Sagt die Gemara, Mas Nissen. Sure, he learned Makis. He's learning Masechta Makis, right? Sagt die Gemara, Mas Nissen, the loy, Rabbi Akiva. Our Mishnah does not follow Rabbi Akiva. Where do we see that? Meaning, Rabbi Akiva says, Eidus that's only on a part, right? Eidus that's only on one of the years, that's only a Chatzi Dava. So the Eidus that are testifying only at a part of a testimony cannot be combined, according to Rabbi Akiva.
What does he mean? The same thing? What's the problem?
Because it says Dava v'lei Chatzi Dava. We're going to get to it. It has to be each Eidus. When an Eidus testifies, it has to be on the whole thing. It cannot be in a half. They're testifying only on a third. About 1 year of the chazaka.
So we learned before that the separate years is not good?
It is, but Rabbi Akiva argues. Rabbi Akiva, we're going to get to it. It's going to mention it again. The Tanya that we learned the Braisa, Rabbi Yosi had said, Kishaholach Abba Chalafta, when my father Chalafta went. So here the Rashbam says, even though it's forbidden for a person, Likrei La'ab Bishmai, what do you mean? You're calling your father Chalafta? Look how Rabbi Yosi says, when my father Chalafta went Eitz Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Limot Torah to learn Torah by Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, how did he call him by his first name? So the answer is, you're allowed to say his name first. You call him father, and then you could say Chalafta, but only when you're using him to mention a din that he said. That's how every din you mention the name of the person who said it. But he did it with respect. He first started with Abba, father, and he says Chalafta said this din.
It has to be with something
With a din.
Yeah. My father just.
Yeah, but when you say my father, no, you don't say my father Joel. Doesn't go like that. Only when it comes to halacha, my father, whoever said the halacha, this and this halacha. Okay, so when Abba, Rabbi Yossi said, when my father Chalafta went to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri to learn Torah, Rabbi Amrullah, it was the reverse. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri went Eitzel Abba Chalafta to learn Torah. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri came to my father Chalafta to learn Torah. Amalei, they asked him, or he said to him, Hare, the shaila is like this. If the Machzik ate the first year in front of two Eidim, and then Shniya, the second year, b'fnei Shnayim, in front of a different pair of Eidim. Shlish is the third year, he ate b'fnei Shnayim in front of a third Kita of Eidim, a third group of Eidim.
They didn't know this Mishnah.
Mao, what's the din? Amalei, here's the makar. Amalei, harei chazaka. He said it is a chazaka. Amalei, afani yaimakein. So either Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said the din, and Abba Chalafta said, I also hold like you, or was the reverse? Abba Chalafta said the din, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said, I also hold like you. Alash Rabbi Akiva, chaylik b'davazeh. But Rabbi Akiva argues, Shehoy Rabbi Akiva oimer. For Rabbi Akiva had said in the pasuk, it says Al pi shnayim edim yakum davar. So the Chachamim say the word davar is extra to teach us davar. Al pi shnayim edim have to testify on a full testimony. V'loy chatzi davar, not on a half a testimony. Here, what was the purpose of the edus? To prove that he has a chazak of 3 years.
At least 3 years.
The two Eidim, you don't have two Eidim testifying on the whole 3 years.
Because if you didn't have the other group,
You only have 1 year. Each one is on 1 year. That's called testifying on a third, or nachatzi davar. But here it's a third. It's not even a chatzi davar. So Rabbi Akiva says, therefore, you can't combine them because you need to testify on a whole full testimony. And here the testimony would have been that he had 3 years chazaka. Two Eidim have to testify in the full 3 years. So
putting a burden on Eidos that they have to see it for 3 years.
For 3 years.
Here he was able to assemble two Eidos, and every year he got different Eidos.
But Rabbi Akiva says that's not testimony. Testimony means if you're bringing Eidim to testify about the 3 years chazaka, you need two Eidim to say about the whole 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah. In fact, you might have the Rabbanim who are allowed to be mitzdarif, the 3 Eidim. So what did they learn out from Dava, V'loy Chatzi Dava?
The three groups of Eidos.
Yeah, he allows to combine the 3 groups. So the Rabbanim say, Hi Dava, V'loy Chatzi Dava, my Avdalei. You want to ask, what the Rabbanim darshan from the word Dava? If he says, Limi Uti, to exclude Eidim about a girl, who's a young girl, Echad Eima Achas Begava, and one Echad Eima Achas Bekresa. One testifies he saw the hair in the back, and one testifies he saw the hair on the stomach. So here he brings down that Rashbam says it's a lashon nekiya, it means by say makim, and one testifies about the hair in the front.
She's a knight.
That she has now 2 siders. It's not a ketana anymore. No. So whatever the obligation, or whatever, the chas v'shom, she was engaged and she lived with another man, she's considered as a nida. Anyway, so over here, we're talking about, the Rashbam says, here he spoke with Lashon Nakiya, one in the stomach, one in the back, but it means Beis Makim, and 2 Eidim testified they saw one here in the front, one said Beis Makim, one said it, 2 Eidim said in the back. So he says, one said the front, split Eidim, one said in the front, one said in the back. Hi Chatzi Davar. This is Chatzi
Davar.
Davar.
The 2 hands have to be in one place, no?
What?
the 2 hairs have to be in one place, no?
It's in one place, one in the front, one in the back.
Oh, he said 2 hairs here.
One here in the one A testified about the one here he saw in the front. It's in the same place, but one said he testified he saw the hair more in the back.
So therefore,
So
she doesn't have 2 hairs.
So it is 2 hairs in the same time. It has to be in the
You
same
say,
day.
well, in different places, no?
It has to be in the same day. The only thing it says that Ashbam brings down that if one testified one day about one hair he saw in the front, and another one testified about one hair he saw in the back, so we're going to say it could be the hair fell out, and that hair that he saw was from a birthmark. Here on a birthmark is not counted as anything. So therefore, it has to be testifying in the same time. But says the Gemara, Hi Chatzidava, this is called Chatzidava. Chatziedis. This is Chatziedis, like I think you insinuated. This is not 2 Eidim testifying for each year. You have 1 aid for one here, 1 aid for the other year. That's Chatzidava. That's not 2 Eidim testifying on Chatzidava. That's 1 aid and 1 aid. It's a whole different psul. It's Chatziedus, it's called. It's not Chatzidava. And for the Gemara, Ella rather.
They're talking about each different hairs.
They're talking about it. Yeah, each one is talking about it different here, and it's one for each year. It's not 2 Eidos, it's Chatzi Eidos. Says the Gemara Ella Lemiyuti is coming to exclude this case.
So why did the Gemara have such a meaning, no?
Okay, so the Gemara retracts and says this is what it's coming to exclude. Lemiyuti Shnayim Eimim Achas Begaba. 2 Eidim testify. We saw one here in the back. Ushnayim Eimim Achas Bekreisa, and 2 Eidim are saying we saw the one here in the front. So now you're not talking about Chatzi Eidos. You're talking about 2 Eidos for each hair. So that's Chatzidava because they're only talking about for one hair is 0. She's still a Ktana. So he's come to tell us when you have 2 Eidim, 2 Eidim for one hair, so that's Chatzidava.
It has to be 2 years.
It has to be 2 hairs. 1 hair is 0. So the Rashbam makes a differentiation. Why a Chadav v'loi Chatzidava is coming to tell us this case and not the case about the 3 years of the Chazaka that 2 Eidim are testifying for each year.
Like Rabbi Akiva said.
So like Rabbi Akiva, he says this is different because he says Hama'id now Shona Achas Mishal Shnei Chazaka. I'm saying the Rashbam. He gives 2 reasons why it's different. He says when it came to the 3 years, we disagree with Rabbi Akiva because the 2 Eidim said the complete Eidus of what they saw. They couldn't see more than the first year. They were there only for 1 year and testified for that full year. Versus when you're talking about 2 Eidim testifying on 1 hair, they were able to see both hairs. They were both there. Both hairs were there. It was just lazy. They saw that 1 hair. Okay, we'll come testify about 1 hair. No.
1 hair was
One is here. They could have seen both. And they didn't bother. They were lazy. They only said we saw one.
So 1 hair.
And 1 here is you mixed me up. That's the second way. I'm going to get to that. Now we're talking about the difference is that when 2 Eidim testify about each year, they testified everything that they were able to see. That's for the year that they were there. It was a full testimony. 2 Eidim testifying just on 1 hair where they were able to see 2 hairs, and they're only testifying on 1 hair. That's no good. That's Chatzidava. Another reason there's a difference according to Rabbanan, and they say Chatzidava only goes by the siders. I'm going to say what the Saul said. He says because 1 hair can't accomplish nothing. It didn't change anything by them testifying about 1 hair. 2 Eidim testifying about 1 year has an effect. It has an effect. You could be mechayiv a person for eating that year, the paytas that he ate. Their testimony has validity and has an effect at that. There's an outcome of those edus. So therefore it's a edus. It's an edus that has an effect. The edus on one side has 0 effect. It didn't change from katana to night or from katana to anything. She remains a katana and nothing happened with their edus. Here, when 2 Eidim testified that he ate the first year, it has an effect. Let's say he's not going to have 2 other years, he doesn't have a chazak, he's going to have to pay for their edus testifying that he ate that year. So there's a difference in the quality of the edus. There's an outcome by the edus testifying by the years of chazaka versus by Eidim testifying just on 1 year.
You still have to wait if you have only edus for one year. You still have to wait for the other 2 years to come about.
True, but the first
Here,
Eidus.
when they said the Eidus finished already.
So you're going back to the first way. Okay, there's two svaris. There's really three. I just told you two. The first svara was, like you just said, that the first Eidus that they came and testified about the first year, they didn't. That's the most they could have testified for,
So
and
finished, huh?
they did the full Eidus. But by the Eidus, when it came to the siders, they were able to testify on two siders, and they only testify on one. That's called chatzitava. They were able to do the whole davar. By the two Eidim that testified on the first year, they did whatever the whole davar of that year. The second one is, like he says, here, Eid is saying about one here has zero effect. It doesn't change anything. Two Eidos testifying he ate the first year. If he doesn't have a chazaka, he's going to pay for the he ate. There's an effect with that Eidos. Okay, let's go weiter. Sagt die Gemara, aber Rav Yehuda hat gesagt, echadei ma'achal chitim. One says he ate wheat. Echadei ma'achal Israel. And one says, yeah, again, one aid testifies, one of the Eidim testify that he ate the 3 years of chitim. And the other aid testifies he ate the 3 years of Seirim. Harei chazaka. That's going to be a chazaka.
One says
Okay.
he's a liar.
No, it's not a liar. So the Gemara will say, people lama daitayo nafshi between Seirim and chitim. They can make such a mistake. Yes.
Oh, but they're all saying that he ate for 3 years.
But they both say that he ate for 3 years.
So is it necessary
Correct.
to say what he ate, or just say that he
Oh,
was
so
there? That's
so
the
Rav
whole-
Yehuda holds. One second, we're going to get to it in a second. So Maskil Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman. Let me just see, where was the 16 over here? Okay, so yeah, over here we have from Rabbi Shua ben Kocha Raya that as long Rabbi Shua ben Kocha said if one aide testified that Shimon borrowed $1,000 from Ruvain in 2023. And another aide comes and says that Shimon borrowed from Ruvain in 2024 $1,000. So Rabbi Shua ben Kocha says we are going to be mitzadif these aides because according to each of the aidim, he owes $1,000 to Ruvain. Shimon owes to Ruvain. Here also, one is testifying he ate the chitim, one is testifying he ate the sayrim. But Peil Mamish, it was the 3 years of Chazaka. That's it. So Rav Nachman is the Shai Lamiyata. So Rav Nachman has a problem with that because Rav Nachman says chitim, the way the people used to eat chitim, they would plant chitim 1 year, sayrim the next year. Chitim 1 year, sayrim the next year. So it's 1, 2, and 5. 1, 2, and 4. Sorry, no.
One, three.
1, 3, and 5, and 2, 4, and 6. So they're testifying about 3 different years. So l'chayra you should be able to. They're both testifying about 3 years of chazaka, right? So you should be able to combine it because each one is testifying about 3 years. Yeah. So Rav Nachman says, if one aide testifies, he ate the first, third, and fifth year. One says,
Either chitim or soidim.
yeah. That's how it worked. They would alternate the years. 1 year chitim, 1 year seidim. And one says he ate the second, fourth, and sixth year.
Why do they need 6 years here?
No, they're testifying. Each one is testifying about 3 different years. And we said it doesn't matter, but there's 3 years of chazaka. It wasn't consecutive years. How can you say it's going to be chazaka? If somebody testifies, 1 aid testifies he ate the second 1 aid, second 4 and 6, 2, 4 and 6, and the first one testified 1, 3 and 5. That's a chazaka. You need consecutive years in order to be able. You need it sufis, and you can't compare it to Rabbi Shua ben
But you need
Kocha.
at least 2 Eidos for each year, no?
You need 2 Eidos for each year. So we said we'll combine the Eidos because each one is testifying about 3 years. But they're not 3 consecutive years that they're both testifying about. They're both testifying
But each year
about.
only has 1 Eid. I don't care if it's 6 years.
It doesn't matter. We combine it like with the money. We said that if Reuben, with Shimon borrowed from Reuben $1,000, one says it happened in 1 year or 1 month, and the other one says it happened in a different month, we
24,
combine them.
24.
The Pearl Mom, she owes $1,000.
$1,000.
Here, the 3 years, we said that there was a 3 years chazaka, so we'll combine the 3 years.
'Cause we have one aid that says
1 says 3 years, 3 and 5, and the other 2, 4, and 6. So the kasha is, how could you say that by chazaka? Chazaka demands ritzufis, consecutive. Rabbi Yehuda answer, Hachi Hashta, could you then compare? Hasam b'shata v'kamasid mar, l'kamasid mar. In the year that one is testifying, on the first year, let's say of Chitim, the one who's testifying Sodom is testifying Gora a different year. On the second year. But over here, they're both testifying on the same 3 years. Same 3 years. But when two Edom are testifying, they're testifying the same 3 years. That's what he's answering. So the Gemara says, by us, this, so it shouldn't be good. So he says, Rabbi Yehuda explained, it's not like you think Chitim and Seidim, they were different years. They're both, the one that said he ate Chitim and the one that said he ate Seidim. For 3 years, they were talking about the same 3 years.
Well, it could be in one field. He grows wheat.
No. It was but my Yiklamema says the Gemara. What could you say? But one said Chita and one said Tzayde. Says the Gemara because by Chita l'sare lava daitaya leinshi. He says people don't have simas left. They don't really look strong, and they can make a mistake between Sodom and Chitim, and they're talking about the same 3 years, and that's why it's going to be a chazak.
He grows wheat, and half a year he grows barley.
He says it's usually done.